Hello, in this video I'll be talking about graphs, the type of graphs, along with adjacency matrix and adjacency lists. So, what is a graph? A graph is a set of nodes and edges. So, in linear form, what is a node? A node is a value, and an edge is something that connects these two values. An undirected graph is a set of nodes and edges which are not directed, which means there is no direction between A and B. So A is connected to B and B is connected to A. There is no particular direction. In similar way, C is connected to B and B is connected to C. These are undirected graphs. Now, directed graphs. So when undirected graphs are not specified in any direction, directed graphs have a specified direction. Let's say A points to B. So this means that A only points to B. B does not point to A. And this is the arrow that signifies that A points to B. Below here, we see that there are arrows on both sides. This means that C is connected to D and D is connected to C. Similarly, A is connected to C and B is connected to D. A directed graph is a graph which has specified directions between the nodes. Now, what does it mean by being adjacent to something? Being adjacent means a node is connected to another. Here, B is adjacent to A because B is connected by A. A is not adjacent to B since B is not connected to A. In an undirected graph, A is adjacent to B and B is adjacent to A. That is the meaning of adjacency. An adjacent matrix has the format of something like this. It is a 2D array where the rows are the values or the nodes and the columns are also the values and the nodes. So how this works is if there is an edge between A and B, then we add 1. If there is not an edge between A and B, which there is, but if there was not an edge, we would use 0. This is how an adjacency matrix is written. In Java, you can make an adjacency matrix using a 2D array. So an int with two arrays, and I will call it AM for adjacency matrix. Now, since I have 5 values A, B, C, D, and E, I'll create 5 inner graphs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'll put them on different lines for readability. When starting off with an adjacency matrix, every element in it is 0. So if this represents A, B, C, D, and E, currently when you're creating an adjacency matrix, there is no relation. If we go up and if I just delete this, and I will try to make an adjacency matrix for this undirected graph. Now I'll label this as A B, C, D, and E. A has a A is adjacent to B, so I'll mark this as 1. A is not adjacent to itself as it is itself. A is also adjacent to C, so I'll add 1 here. Now A is not adjacent to anything else other than B and C, so the row for A is finished. Next we go to B. B is adjacent to A, C, and D. Similarly, C is adjacent to A, B, and D. D is adjacent to B, C, and E. And E is only adjacent to D. This is the adjacency matrix for the undirected graph. Similarly, we can do so for the directed graph. Next is an adjacency list. An adjacency list is one that is a set of linked lists. A points to something, B points to something, C points to something, and D points to something. I'll make an adjacency list for our directed graph. So in this, A points to B, and B in turn points to D. D points to C, and C doesn't point to anything else. Here, B points to D, B and D points to C. However, A also points to B, but B does not point to A. So we will not write any A value in the list of B. C only points to D, and in this directed graph, D only points to C. This is the adjacency list for the directed graph. You can also create an adjacency list using Java. This is done by using a map, which takes an integer, a list of integers, as a parameter. There are methods like add node, add edge, and display the graph. So in this, if we create a graph, and I'll call it G, this is a new graph. And I want to add a node. Uh, we'll just add 0 first. And then I will add another node, 1. I'll add a slash node, 2. Now that we've added node, I will add edges between these nodes. So I'll add an edge between 0 and 1. And I'll add another edge between 1 and 2. Now I will display the graph, and as there is no direction to this, this is an undirected graph. So we'll be creating an adjacency list for an undirected graph. If I run this, we'll see that there are the nodes 0, 1, and 2, which we have added. We added an edge from 0 to 1. So 0 points to 1. We also added a node of 1 points to 2. So 1 here points to 2. But since this is an undirected graph, 1 also points to 0. And because of that, 2 points to 1. This is a video on adjacency matrices, adjacency list, and the types of graphs. Thank you.